realized that it wasn't just free will that's going on here. There's something else. And something else, some of you may have heard this term before. I like to call it divine will. The will of something that's not separate from you, but higher than your current awareness in this physical body. So we have free will and we have divine will. You know when you start driving, you're in, driver's ed, and you have the teacher sitting right next to you, and they have the pedals just in case you do something stupid. Some of them have a steering wheel just in case you're really bad to save the day with everybody else in the car, especially your life as well. Well, when you come into this earth, this plane, this planet, whatever you want to call it, this human experience, you're in school. We all are. And in school, you're learning how to drive. Only, in this case, you're learning how to live. And you have two versions of yourself. You have yourself on the level of the soul, and you have yourself on the level of the ego, of the body. Not a bad thing. We'll speak about that in a second as well. Now, if you came here with all the answers, leave. You have no reason to be here. You came here to learn those answers. You came here to understand those things. When you're given a test in school, sometimes it could be annoying, but you need to pass that test if you want to go to the next grade. You need to pass that test if you want to graduate, because that test is testing you on the lessons that you've learned. Life is no different in the way that it works. Now I'm going to ask all of you here and at home, think of the hardest time in your life. Think of the hardest moment in your life, the hardest situation, whether it's injury, whether it's something that happened to your children, whether it's divorce, whether it's bankruptcy. And before you come to your answer, because it may not happen right now, first comes the aligned awareness. Are you willing to see or find the lesson in the greatest hardships in your life? Raise your hand if you're willing to do that. Raise your hands if you're not. Some of you are lying. It's okay, we're human. Listen, we all go through things. Some of us are not ready for things sometimes, but it doesn't change the fundamental truth. Now, why is there a car there? And the reason why is because when you come into this life, you are the free will driver. You don't have the answers. You're playing a game of hot and cold. If you had the free will answers, you would have never touched the fire when you were a baby. Your free will allows you to go and experience that, say, ooh, it hurts, and then not do it again. It's a game of hot and cold to learn, and to keep learning, and to keep going. But now, we're going to reshape our perspective of every single one of those hardships. And then we're going to learn how to read what divine will is actually telling you. That's the application of how you transform your life. When you're driving in the free will seat, your divine will knows exactly where it needs to go. It knows the path of what you are destined here to do. It knows your purpose. Your free will is figuring that out. So sometimes your free will veers left, and it veers off the road. And there's a tree and a bunch of dangerous things there. And if you keep going that way, you're going to hit it. Your divine will brings it right back on course. Now, your free will is not aware of the divine will. So your free will is not ready for that jerk back onto the road. What happens? Your head hits the window. And then you sit there and you say, ow, why did that window hit me? Well, because something saved your life. And there's a message telling you, don't go that way. Stay on path. Every single thing that happens to you in your life is happening for you. It's your divine will bringing you back on track. For me, I was going off track with my free will. I looked around me as a kid and I said, I don't fit in. So what did I start doing? Everything else that all the other kids did. And we went out and parties and drinking and smoking and everything else that we've all done growing up and probably still do to an extent. But the key was that was not in alignment with my personal divine will. My free will didn't know that. My divine will stepped in and put me in the hospital over and over and over again until I heard the message. And those messages kept getting louder and louder and louder until I decided to take action. My experience is not different than yours because we are not separate. We're different expressions of the same exact thing. Source. Just like waves are different expressions through the same medium that we call water. Poison one wave, poison the ocean. Learn one thing, teach the whole school. It's all interconnected. It's the law of oneness and how things work. So again, with divine will and free will, and I'm asking you guys to think about this in your own way. Forget about the philosophy. Apply it to your life for a second. Think of that moment in time where you hit rock bottom. We've all had it to one degree or another. Where did it actually start? What weren't you listening to along the way? And could you reshape your meaning with what has happened to you and find how it's actually been happening for you? You see, if you pass the test, you have no reason to take it again. But if you don't pass the test, you will get it again. It has nothing to do with your age. A lot of people look at me, they say, Jason, you're 26 years old. What's going on here? And I say, well, it's not really about how old you are. It's about what you've done with the time that you have. How did you apply and learn the lessons as they came your way? Because from 0 to 19, I was a jackass. Something happened. And in 1 year, everything changed. In 1 year, you can grow, you can evolve in ways that most people don't in 50 or 60. Experience and age is important, but application of that experience is more important. And if you keep asking yourself, why is this happening to me? You'll never learn the lesson because you're constantly sitting in front of the test saying, why? Instead of understanding and remembering that the purpose of the test is to help you go to the next level. And let's not forget that more tests will come. You see, this life of ascension and getting where you feel that you need to be is not a life where you don't have problems. It's a life where you see your problems as opportunities. Therefore, you change the way that you deal with your problems. First and foremost, before your act of doing, comes your act of being. Who are you? How do you see the world? How do you see yourself in it? From there, you can take aligned action. Now, when it comes to free will and divine will, free will is the ego. And many of us have been taught that the ego is a horrible thing. But it's not. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had it. You have it because it's part of a bigger picture. The fact that we've been using it the wrong way is a whole different story. It's almost like if everybody that had a knife killed somebody, we would think a knife is bad. But if everybody that had a knife made a salad with it, beautiful. Same thing with the ego. What is your ego? Let's define that for a second because we all may have different definitions. Your ego is the reason why you run from a bear when it's chasing you. Your ego believes that you are everything in the physical world. It is your physical engine. It doesn't know that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It doesn't know that there's life beyond life. It doesn't know any of those things. Because if it did, you wouldn't have fear induced in your body when there was a bear chasing you. You would just sit there and be like, well, I'm going to come back anyways, so let's just meditate and everything's going to be okay. But that's not how the physical world works. So it's a balance of the physical and the spiritual. You know those people, they're like, well, time doesn't exist, so I don't have to make this meeting. No, you do, because we need to do things, right? There are things that still need to be done. We just need to make sure that we're not servants to the ego, but rather masters of the ego. If you want to master the ego, you first have to befriend it. Once you befriend it, you have to understand the illusions that it believes. We don't have time to get into all of that, but things like death, separation, time, all of those things are good for practical purposes. They are not fundamental truths. When you believe them as fundamental truths, it's almost like believing that I'm pulling a rabbit out of the hat. It's an illusion. If you believe the illusion as reality, you are a servant to me. If you understand the illusion, have have fun with it, but understand that it's an illusion, you are a master of me. The ego is your engine in the physical world. Divine will is your engine in the spiritual world, and both have a purpose. I'll give you a perfect example. If you have this will, you come into this world with a purpose to feed 100 billion people. Well, what part of you do you think is actually going to do that in the world? Who's going to set up the foundation? Who's going to get the legal team to put it all together? Who's going to build the websites? Where is that motivation going to come from to do all those things that in the spirit world doesn't actually matter? The ego. The key over here is very simple. When the desire of the ego is aligned with the desire of the soul, you become unstoppable. When the desire of the ego is aligned with the desire of the soul, you become unstoppable. When the desire of the ego is not aligned with the desire of the soul, your failure is inevitable. You will end up hurting yourself and others because it's coming from a place that is not pure and true. It's coming from a place that believes the confines of this physical world. And it's that very limited awareness that is caused for war and greed and corruption. Those are the negative sides of the ego. It's my land, not yours. My God is better than your God. I'm going to kill you because I'm better than you. That's the ego in play in a counterproductive way. That is why it took a negative sort of reputation, but it's not a negative thing. The reason why I'm standing here today is because of the desire of the soul and the desire of the ego. Because my mission was to say, how do I impact as many people as possible? How do I positively help and change the world in the best way that I know how to? Desire of the soul. Desire of the ego, okay, let's build the site, let's build the app, let's do the newsletters, let's hire the team, let's not sleep because there's a lot of work to be done. That's where the ego is a productive thing. Become friends with the productive part of your ego. Master it instead of becoming a servant to it, and things will change much faster than you can comprehend. Now the question is it possible to understand what divine will is actually trying to tell us? It's one thing to say in philosophy, you went off the path, it doesn't like that you went off the path, it brought you back on the path for your greater good. But it would be much more productive if you understood where you actually went wrong, so-called, and what it's actually trying to show you to better align with the purpose and the path of why you came here in the first place. There is a way that divine will is trying to speak to you all the time. And we're about to explain that. There are many ways, but we're going to focus on a few internal ways and then a few external ways so you guys can go home today and actually apply this in your day-to-day life to a point where it becomes second nature. The power of the subconscious should never be underestimated because it's who you are. As you can see in that graphic, 5% of who you are is conscious. Everything else your body takes care of. Your blood pumping, your heart beating, all those things your body is doing. You could think about breathing, but if you stop thinking about it, you're not going to stop breathing. That's your subconscious mind. If you did, we'd be in a very, very big mess over here if we had to think about breathing every single time we breathe. Now, how do we tap into the subconscious? Is there a way to do that? If the subconscious knows more than our conscious mind for obvious reasons, because we can't be conscious of everything all the time. Fun fact, you can only learn 7 new things at any given time. That's why when you start driving, in the beginning, you first have to look in the mirror, and then the left, and then the right, and then this, and then the gas, and then the brake, and all those things. And then eventually you get to a point where you can text. You shouldn't, but eventually you get to a point where you can text. Why? Because you had to do something consciously until it was then embedded into your subconscious, and now it's second nature. Well, everything over here, these applications, can become second nature to you. It's not about time. It's about the frequency of how often you're going to practice them. So it could take you 5 years, it could take you 10 days. If you do something enough, it becomes an automatic behavior in the subconscious. Autonomy is beautiful if it's a productive trait. If it's a counterproductive trait, it's very difficult, because now you're doing something without realizing it that's actually counterproductive to who you are. Now, when it comes to the subconscious, forget about the conscious tip of the iceberg. How do we tap into the subconscious? And one of the simple ways is dreams. You see, nobody actually knows what dreams are, and it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where they come from, where they go to, and all those things. What matters is, how can we actually use them as a tool? How can we use them to tap into something that's telling us something deeper about ourselves? We go through things every day. How many of you have ever had a dream of something before it happened? Raise your hand. That's what we call a prophetic dream. How many of you have ever had a dream of somebody chasing you and you were running away? How many of you turned around and looked who it was? It's generally you. You're running from a deeper part of yourself that you didn't want to face when you were awake. That's called a coping dream. How many of you have had a dream of something that you didn't understand, but you felt that it symbolized something? Raise your hand. It's called a reflective dream or a symbolic dream. But before we go into that, what is the difference between dreams and reality? And the answer is, there is none. You know that because of the mechanism of consciousness. If everything is happening through you, formless light is being projected, the only difference between what happens to you in a dream and what happens to you in reality or waking life is the brain state that you're operating in. So here's a cool little thing. When talking about things like supernatural abilities, levitation, there are a lot of people in the world that say that's not possible. Well, there's something that every single one of you do every single night that is supernatural, because you can't do it right now. How many of you can move your eyes rapidly like you do when you're sleeping right now? It's called rapid eye movement. Most people can't do it. What is the difference? There's one differing factor of when you can do rapid eye movement and when you can't. It's not a different body. The difference is the frequency, the dimension that you are operating on in your brain. And that dimension or that brain wave is what allows processing to happen differently, which allows expression to happen differently. It goes back to the mechanism of consciousness. You are literally doing something every single night without even being aware of it. That is supernatural, because nobody can do that right now, unless you can move to that brain state while you're awake. That's a practice in and of itself. There is no difference between dreams and reality other than the brain state or the frequency or dimension that one is operating at when experiencing it. That's why you can wake up and your heart's beating fast and you're freaking out like it happened to you, because it did biologically. Only in a different way when it comes to the laws of physics. Why is any of that important? Well, when it comes to dreams, what if I told you that there's a language that you don't have to learn, you actually create yourself, that you can use to tap into your subconscious and understand what it is that the subconscious is trying to tell you? In other words, becoming conscious of the subconscious. When you looked at those dream books, there are all these dream journals and different meanings and all those things that they mean. Well, there are some cultures where a fish means abundance, and there are other cultures where a fish means something else. Is there an objective truth? No. We make it true based on what the subconscious accepted to be true when it comes to associations. So if a fish means abundance, and a fox means there's somebody devious around you, and a snake means there's going to be misfortune in the future, and a house burning means there's going to be a big transformation coming up in the next few days, you just made that true. So here's what you can do. Instead of going and having to make your own language, buy yourself a journal. Buy yourself any book, it doesn't matter which one, because it's not about an objective truth. It's about flipping through that book and just accepting the book for what it says. It's just a book of associations for your subconscious to your conscious. And as you flip through it, you don't even have to read it or remember all of it. Your subconscious does that. It's that smart. It's that intelligent. It's that powerful. And as you do that and go through the book just once, it will be registered within the subconscious. Now tomorrow you have a dream. A tooth fell out. Go to the book. What does it mean? What it means is what your subconscious is trying to tell you, because you literally gave it a tool to use some form of symbol to tell you something, to help you realize something that was in that 95 percentile of that iceberg that you wouldn't have known any other way. It's one of the tools that you can use to tap into your subconscious, which knows a lot more than we do consciously. Now, when it comes to external tools, we have our body. I'm going to tell you guys a quick little story. About 2 years ago, year and a half ago, I walked into my mom's garden in New York. I went to visit them. And I walk into the garden, and I step on this thorn. And it was the most painful thing ever. It just went into the worst place of my foot. It goes in, and I reacted, and I'm looking, and then I'm like, wait. Before I pull it out, I don't know why I decided to do this, but it brought a very big realization. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what part of the body does that piece of the foot represent? I looked it up. One of those reflexology things that you see in the massage places, I looked it up, and I'm like, interesting, the exact point represents my kidneys. Now, I had a memory. 48 hours before that exact experience, I'm sitting with my father in the backyard, and I don't know why he said this, and I was so thrown off. I'm like, what? Like, why did you decide to say that? But I felt like it was a message. I just didn't listen to it. And he goes 2 days before this happened, Jason, eat the watermelon. It's good for your kidneys. It will help you cleanse them. Like, what? Why would you say that, dude? Like, where did that even come from? You've never said something like that before. Why are you like, what? What is that? Then, for the cherry on top, right after, I'm looking, okay, I remembered that kidney. I saw in my foot kidney. I sit down. I'm on a Zoom call. I'm trying to enjoy my stressful day after the thorn in my foot. And a massive frog sculpture smashes my computer. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I said, you know what? Let me just look up what a frog means spiritually. Let's just see. Let's see if there's a message here, right? So, fun fact, if you go and do this on Google, you will see a frog represents 100 different things. But the first thing that I saw was transformation within your kidneys. I'm like, what? So there's something trying to tell you something. We're just trying to learn. Now, remember what I said about things getting louder and louder and louder? Pay attention to what happened. Over a period of 48 hours, it started with my dad saying something. I obviously didn't listen. Then it went to the thorn in my leg. Whatever, I could deal. And then it smashed the computer, and I had to buy a new one for $2,000. Like, that got louder. That was I'm paying attention now. What's going on? The point over here is that we are being given messages throughout our lives all the time. Have you ever needed to know something and then suddenly a song came on and the words were in the song? You know what I'm talking about? Or suddenly you needed a sign, you see a sign on the wall and it tells you exactly what it is that you needed to know? It's how the universe is speaking to you. Because source is one and it will never do anything to hurt itself, only to help itself. This is one of the fundamental laws of the laws of oneness in action and how it actually looks like. So when we look at the body, we first have to understand the map of the body if we want to understand the messages that we're trying to receive. The map of the body on the left side is feminine energy. What's going on with that energy, with those archetypes in your life? The right side is your masculine. Then it goes deeper because each side also has a correlation to what you're seeing in the brain. Only with the brain, it's crisscross. So it gets a little confusing. So lefties are right brain, and righties are left brain. How many of you got hit with a ruler when you were writing with your left hand when you were younger? They called it satanic. I don't know how they got there, but they called it satanic. Now, if you pay attention to what's going on here, look at the difference between the right and the left. Neither is better than the other. This is the law of balance in action. You need both to operate. Lefties, they say they're more creative. That's the stereotype. They're more creative, they're more artistic. Well, if you look at what that side of the brain does, you see things like emotional, focused on art and creativity, intuitive. But if you're only intuitive, with zero logic or reason, you can run yourself into very dangerous situations. Almost like if you only have divine will, with zero ego involved, you won't run away from the bear. So when you understand how the brain works, you can then use different things and practice doing things with different sides of the body to activate that part of the brain. If you see that you have issues that are representing feminine energy and imbalanced feminine energy in your body, well, you can do things to activate that side. You'll then be guided to maybe do things like regression therapy, going into your inner child, that many people do around the world to help clear certain things that were frozen in time. You may even be able to take it to a more advanced version and understand which foods are yin and which foods are yang. Which foods hold cold energy, which foods hold warm energy. Which colors can help rebalance certain parts of the body. No color is bad, but each color also correlates to a sound, because nanometers can be translated into hertz. Therefore, you can also have yellow music. What I mean by that is this. There are an infinite amount of tools that you can actually use. But you first have to be aware of a few of them so you can connect to all the others. When it comes to color, we have 7 what? Say it out loud. Okay. And with those 7 chakras, we bring that up sometimes, and then our doctor probably looks at you and says, what the hell's wrong with you? That's crazy. There's no such thing. Well, here's what they're missing and what we've forgotten. When you look at the body, you have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Roy G. Biv, exactly what we were taught as kids. What they didn't teach us is what each color actually is. And if you go on Google and you look at the color spectrum, you'll see the same thing. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. What most people don't pay attention to is that it's a spectrum of nanometers. It's a wavelength. About 700 to about 400. There are technicalities there that we won't get into. Yellow is a wavelength. But then wait a second. How is it, or why is it, that your solar plexus is yellow? Could it be that the optimal frequency of your digestive system is the energy that we perceive as yellow? And is it a coincidence that yellow foods rebalance this part of the body specifically? Is it a coincidence that your root chakra, which is directly correlated to inflammation in your body, for example, is it a coincidence that cherries, raspberries, cranberries, strawberries are all good for inflammation in the body? Why? Because you are eating energy in a different way, and that energy then becomes a part of you, and you're bringing in a coherent energy to become a part of you that will directly target the part that it needs to rebalance. The color of your food is a guide to tell you what food is good for what part of the body. Green foods, green juices are good for your heart and detoxing any mucus out of your lungs. That's why when you go on a green juice fast, you're coughing a lot of garbage out. In Japan, they have forests that they prescribe their patients to go to just to walk through in order to rebalance their system using color and nature. The reason why I'm sharing all of this with you right now is because when you understand color in a different way, and you understand how you are a map of color, every organ has a different optimal frequency in the body, the way that you eat changes. But what you listen to will change as well. Because if yellow is roughly 540 nanometers, and you take your handy-dandy calculator and you convert 540 nanometers to hertz, you're going to get about 256 hertz. This is the song that will rebalance this. Music and color are not separate. They're different expressions of the same exact thing. And it all ties right back into the body, because each part of the body is a map of the entire body. That's what people call the holographic universe. So if you want to take pictures of this, you can. Your hands have a certain map to them. And what happens to different parts of your hands will show you what the universe is trying to tell you on where is there an issue. But don't be fooled, because it doesn't end with a physical organ. That's just where it starts. It really roots all the way back to frozen emotions that over time went and did their thing and stayed there to a point where it stopped that energetic flow, causing dis-ease, like Lee Holden said earlier. It's about a lack of light in the body that can't move. If you have breast cancer or the breast tumor, and I take a picture of you using Kirlian photography, you will see light, 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 dark. Because health is light, chi, energy moving through the body in a balanced way, and dis-ease is simply a dis-ease of flow of light not able to move. Like Lee said, it is stagnant energy. Proper colors, proper sounds, proper foods will help you move that energy. Proper breathing will reflect, as Lee also said, certain emotional states that you experience in your life. That's the law of reflection. So, like he was saying earlier, you can't do this and say, I'm depressed. It doesn't go hand in hand. It's the law of reflection in action. Each breath has a different internal reflection that it will express in and of itself. But it doesn't stop there, because your ear can also be used as a map for your body. These are acupressure points on your ears. When you understand the body in a different way, everything changes in terms of the things that you do, not because of your state of doing, but because of the awareness that dictates your state of doing. This is what I looked at when it came to my feet, and I understood exactly what was going on, and it helped me change things in my life. And yes, there was a kidney issue that needed to be solved. All of it came full circle. This is real. You just need to understand the language that source, divine, whatever it is that you want to call it, God. Everybody has different terminology. And each terminology triggers some and makes others smile. It's not about the word, it's about the principle. There is something going on here that interconnects and is connected to absolutely everything. And if we understand the language of that something and how it's speaking to us, everything changes. Your teeth are a reflection of this as well. The top represents a different side than the bottom. Your upper jaw is a different reflection than your lower jaw. Just like your left hand is a different reflection than your right hand. Your eyes, the study of iridology, is no different either. People can know everything about you just by looking at your eyes, because it is too a full reflection and a full map of the body. And here's where I'd like to sum it all up. When it comes to a new relationship with change, because if you choose to embrace this today and move forward throughout the rest of your life in a different way, change is imminent. Change is inevitable. Some of us don't like change. Most of us don't like change, and that's the ego. Because the ego is comfortable where it's at. But the soul knows that it can be in a better place. When you're going through the change that you will be going through if you choose to do what needs to be done here, you will experience a new foundation that needs to be built. And when you build a new foundation, it doesn't mean building a new tower. It means taking out some of the counterproductive pieces from the base of your tower and replacing it with something more productive. The scary part is not taking it out or putting a new one in. The scary part is the time of instability in between. You want to embrace that, reshape your perspective of that instability period, or what I call the transformation phase. It is the very reason why you're able to change in the first place. So instead of being afraid of it, instead, you can be excited for it, because it changes your life to begin with. Thank you all very much. Let's make some noise for Gaia. They deserve it. I want to thank you all for being here, for everybody behind the scenes that put this together, for all the speakers that made these 2 days absolutely incredible, and all of you for really doing what it takes. We cannot have done this without each and every one of you being here and being committed in the way that you are. So thank you all very much, and let's keep spreading the love everywhere we go. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, for being here these last 2 days. Who learned something amazing over these last 2 days? Yeah? Awesome.